Hello and welcome back to my continued Lucifer Morningstar build from Hazbin Hotel. I'm your amusing host and creator, Chaotic Neutral Cosplay. Dun 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 dun. So today I'm going to be showing you how I made my corset vest for Lucifer. I did actually use a corset, so I used 24 steel bones, 6 white steel, and 18 spiral steel because 1, I'm insane, and 2, I really miss making corsets. Let's talk about Lucifer's vest here for a moment. So, as you can see, there are no front closures on this, which makes it ideal for corsets, and he's only got the single chain on the bottom there. The other chains you can see are actually attached to the jacket, so I will be adding those later. My go-to method for most fitted garments, and especially corsets, is to use a duct tape, or in this case, because we were out of duct tape and too lazy to run to the store, a painter's tape pattern method, which is made directly on the cosplayer, or me. There's a ton of tutorials on this method, so I'm just going to briefly cover it. Let me know if you'd be interested in a more in-depth tutorial at some point. Basically, the cosplayer is wrapped in cling wrap and then covered in duct or painter's tape. From there, you can directly draw the pattern on their body, ensuring a custom fit, before carefully cutting them out of it without cutting them or anything they're wearing. You can see I have carefully labeled all of the pieces here, and I'm going to be cutting them out and pinning them down on my test fabric. I'm using duck canvas as my test vest slash eventual final pattern here because it's quite sturdy, so it'll give me a stiffer feel to have an idea of how the final corset will actually fit. So after a lot of cutting, sewing, etc, here is the test corset. This isn't boned yet, but it does give me an idea of where to alter the final pattern just a little bit, tweaks here and there, and I'm ready to cut the actual corset fabric now. The process here is pretty much the same process as everything else I've made for Lucifer. Pin down, cut, stitch, 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 etc. The difference is I'm sewing 2 layers of the duck canvas together, not only to act as my interfacing, but also to give myself boning channels to insert my corset bones. Here's where things get interesting. Hopefully you can see pretty well in this video, but this is the placement of the boning channels. They follow along all of the seams, 1 on either side, as well as having extra bones in the front, mid-side, and back. If you've never made a corset, there are some great commercial patterns that have placement guides for bones. But I'm pretty much just going on memory because I've made so many corsets for Renfer commissions eons ago when I was doing that. I'm just going to briefly talk about spiral steel here, and this is just me going off on a tangent, but you're going to enjoy it because we're here! So, this is probably my favorite type of boning, and there are many different types of boning. But spiral steel is flexible, it makes curves look phenomenal. I don't have any curves, but it's the thought that counts, eh? It's relatively easy to work with. I get mine from a corset supply company, but it is available on Amazon. I cannot speak to the Amazon quality, but it comes in multiple sizes. You do have to put caps on either end in order to seal the spiral steel bone so it doesn't poke through your fabric, and you do need heavy-duty wire cutters to cut it, but other than that, it is very easy to work with, so it's very beginner-friendly. My method is to basically measure the bones, cut them, cap them, and slip them into the corset before stitching the bottom or top of the channel closed. I prefer to insert from the bottom as I find it's neater to seal them that way, but a lot of people prefer to insert from the top because the top gets a lot less wear than the bottom, so it's a little less work to reinforce. I say a little, but it's a lot less work to reinforce the top of a channel versus reinforcing the bottom. If you are not confused yet, huzzah! Welcome to corsetry! And then here's a quick try on, making sure that the corset vest fits and feels comfy, and I am ready to work on the casing. For the casing, or outer facing fabric, it's the same technique you've seen over and over in the last few vlogs. Cut, sew, iron. I have used an interlocking stitch on all of the pieces to keep them from fraying and add a little extra reinforcement. My end goal with the corset is to finish it using a bias tape I'll make, so I'm just sewing the casings directly on the interfacing or boning layer. I'm doing bias for a couple reasons, but the long and short of it is I'd have to do it anyway from the armhole since this is not a traditional corset, so I'm going for consistency. And this is the front. I will admit this is not an easy fabric to work with. Anytime you're trying to match stripes, it's automatically a horrible time. This is the finished front of the corset that I will be sewing, and what I didn't record or show you is the 7 times I cut / seam ripped this apart because the stripes did not match. There were a lot of tears shed and that didn't need to go in the video. But now that we're here, everything is ready to go. I also added a little jump ring in the back of the corset panels. This is going to hold my pouch so I have somewhere to put my wallet and phone. I riveted this under the top fabric before I sewed it down so it is not visible. And now the fun / awful part of any corset, if you didn't think the rest of it was already entertaining enough, which is the rivets. I used white steel rivet bones, which are basically corset bones that have rivet holes in them already to reinforce the rivet holes. These are fantastic because otherwise you gotta reinforce the heck out of your rivet area so they don't just pop out when the pressure is put on them while lacing or wearing the corset, which you know is kind of important. The process is cut a hole, use a rivet setter and mallet to set, try not to hit your fingers, and repeat. You know, twice as many times as you have rivet holes. It's great. Ta-da! A pretty little row of rivets. I've used white to match Lucifer's colors. And here is a full try-on. But wait, I am not actually done with this yet. Final touches are the little waist chain, my fancy buttons, and the finished bias. So here is the final look. It is very comfortable. I am very happy with this. Again, it's super comfortable. It's extremely supportive, which is what is great about making a custom corset. It makes me feel sexy, and it's everything I want in a corset vest. So that is all I've got for you for this video. I will see you in the next one. Bye!